topic. So I hope that you guys get a lot out of this, okay? So I'm focusing on Kindara today because that is the one that I use and I recommend just because it's free. It's got the body temp stuff. Jess on the podcast, she did recommended another one. I can't remember the name of it, which is a paid one, but she says that's really great. And she works with a different one with her clients. I know you guys are using a range of different ones, but I'm just going to focus on Kindara today, but they have similar aspects across the board. So one, who is period tracking for? Yes for pregnancy, yes for birth control. They are two big ones. If you want to fall pregnant or you don't want to fall pregnant, or you're using the fertility awareness method like we chatted about in the podcast, it's really, really, really important to be doing as opposed to, if you're not on any other form of contraception, or like I said, if you're trying to fall pregnant, then you need to be looking at that ovulation window, okay? But beyond that, things like ovulating. Are you ovulating? We need to know if you're ovulating and if you're producing that progesterone, because that is a key thing in skin health, sexual health, your libido, your energy, your mood, your hair, your nails, all those things really comes down to that nice, healthy ovulation. If you're having irregular periods, please track. When are you getting them? What are your symptoms like? Does it look like you're ovulating? I would still be tracking even if you're not having periods, because you may notice still a bit of a cyclic shift, because I noticed when I wasn't having periods, I was still getting a cyclic shift with my skin and with my digestion. Just for body awareness, everyone's like, you're so aware of your body, Sheridan. I'm like, yeah, because I track everything. Like, I use my Kindara app every night when I lie there in bed before I go to sleep. I might just update my macros for the day, or update my tracking app for, if I've had a bit of psoriasis, if I had some acne flare-ups, if I got a bit of constipation, I can just go, okay, right, I'm about to ovulate. Obviously, my hormones are a bit unhappy, or I had a bit of breast tenderness, or super tired, and it will just tell us a little bit more about what's going on. So your hormone health, it'll give us insight into that. Your skin health, 110%, because psoriasis, eczema, dermatitis, they're all linked into your hormones, and acne obviously is 110% linked into that DHEA, testosterone, oily skin component. And your IBS, it might be hormonal. So the key things they're tracking is your discharge, so your mucus discharge, when your period starts and stops, the heaviness of your period and your cycle, any pain you are having, your body temperature, your cervix. Jess chatted about that in the podcast episode, so please go and listen to that, just about feeling your cervix, how open it is, how soft it is, and that'll change around your period as well. Your skin, obviously, your mood. So energy is a big one to be tracking. And then also your gut health, because a lot of you get bloating and constipation. But if that is around your period, and same those loose stools, it gives us a lot more insight if we know it's hormonal rather than just gut driven. Okay. So there's different ways to track all these things depending on the apps you're using, but I'm just going to go through briefly how I do it on Kindara and the metrics I use. So for ovulation, as we know, it's the main event of your cycle. So when you're ovulating, it's not only really helpful to accurately time hormone test collection, so Dutch or blood or anything like that, but also empowers you to be in control of your fertility. So if you do or don't want to fall pregnant, you want to know about ovulation, because we know that our most fertile window is in around that ovulation period, okay? Now, when you're tracking temp and around ovulation, we're tracking BBT, so basal body temperature. So when you ovulate and you produce progesterone, your body temp rises, okay? So that pinpoints, or it rises after you ovulate. So you'll start to learn what your baseline temp is pre-ovulation, then you ovulate, you produce progesterone, and you get this spike in temp. So your body temperature should rise by about 0.3 to 0.5 degrees after you ovulate, as you enter that luteal phase. This should remain elevated for 3 days to confirm ovulation happened the day before. So it'll spike, after you've ovulated, okay? Yay for you. So these are the ranges we're looking at. So pre-ovulation, that 31, and this is why you need a body temp that goes down to the decimal points, because you will see as small as that 1 to, or to that 0.1 to that 0.4, and then also you can see that 0.4 to that 0.8 post-ovulation. So it's a relatively small spike, but on your chart you will see it because the charting is very specific. So you can do this a couple ways. You can purchase just a normal temp from the chemist, a basal body temp from the chemist. It's got to be, like I said, down to those decimal points. You do it first thing in the morning, have it next to your bed. Don't eat or drink anything, just get your basal body temp on waking, okay? It's not so much the individual temperature that matters, but the pattern over the first and second half of your cycles. Remember, if you have consistently low basal body temperature, and I know that I used to, you do have that sort of diagnostic criteria for that low adrenal and low thyroid function, because body warmth, sexual health, those things are signs of a strong, healthy metabolism. Temp drops are a really easy way to collect it. I have a temp drop. Mine's gone flat at the moment, as you would have heard in Jess's episode, but it makes it way easier because you're not worried about getting up during the night. All those kinds of things which can disrupt it will impact your under your tongue, your basal body temp, as opposed to a temp drop will work its way through that. The other thing for ovulation is that cervical mucus. So pay attention as to what is happening in your underwear. Although your cervical mucus doesn't confirm ovulation, you can see when it's occurring. So when it gets that stretchy egg white consistency, you know you're gearing up for ovulation, okay? Because you're getting that hormonal rise and you should see a bit of a change. But again, listen to that podcast with Jess, because everyone's mucus will vary, and some people actually don't get a lot and some people get heaps of mucus changes. So it's really, really, really different from person to person. And just if you're not getting a lot, it doesn't mean you're not ovulating. It just gives us a bit more information. And I really noticed mine on my chart to be period, dry, like not a lot. And then now, as I'm heading towards ovulation, it just starts getting a bit weird. Like, it's the only way I can describe it. And then I know close to ovulation, it'll get really egg whitey and thicky and slippery. And then afterwards, I find I dry up a little bit and then I start my period. Some people don't really dry out, some stay a bit more moist, some don't have a lot. So it just varies. You can get OPK kit, which some of you have done for your Dutch test. This can be useful if you're looking at that fertile window. Use that in combination with your temperature tracking, okay? They measure the rise in luteinizing hormone, so that can be a good way to look at ovulation. You can do the PROV test or the P test and confirm ovulation. It's not cheap, but it is good if you are trying to conceive. And then the Dutch test, again, we want to confirm ovulation because we test 5 to 7 days post-ovulation, okay? And the Dutch testing will help confirm ovulation when we see that elevated progesterone in your test results. So in the Candara app, let me just move this photo for me. I recommend turning off the ovulation prediction feature, just because we want to track your stuff and not have an app tell you when you're going to ovulate. So once you've entered a full cycle worth of temps, your chart may look a little bit like this. So this is a pretty straightforward looking chart. Everyone's will vary, but basically down the bottom, it's got the sex. So you'll notice you can put in your tracking app if you've had sex, if you withdrew, if it was unprotected, if it was protected, those kinds of things. You can then see the menstruation. So you'll be tapping on your chart as to how heavy your blood flow was. So this one, she had medium and then quite light for her last, what was that? So that was 5 days long. Didn't have anything, had a little bit of mucus shifts, and then it got a bit stickier. And then she had that egg white consistency, which we can see happened after ovulation because she had that spike. So this is the luteal phase, and we can see the numbers. The app can put the numbers on there as well. So she's got a 12-day luteal phase, which is quite nice. So that's happening in a 32-day cycle. This is happening around day 20, 21. So that's quite a nice period. These dots are the temp, okay? So you can see here, she tracked a temp there and there, but didn't do the day in between. So it's just doing a dot just to go, this is roughly where it's going. And you can see the temp's a little bit over the place, but then you have a significant shift up, okay? But remember, again, it's 36.0 up to 0.4. So it's not actually, it's not like it's 36 to 38. It's not a full degree. It's always down to that decimal point. So again, the cervical mucus, you can note the changes across her cycle. You can see the top line of the chart is the days, and then you've got the cycle days as well. Now, this one coincidentally do actually line up, but that's only because the first day of her bleed was on her first cycle day. That is rare. That doesn't normally happen. Then along the right-hand side of the chart, you see that temperature. On the bottom, you can see her intercourse there. So I've just been through that, but that's basically what Kindara looks like when you start to track those things, okay? Now, the other thing you can see is that menstruation has occurred, which we chatted about, and then those cervical mucus shifts. You can also put this cover line in here where you just hold onto the chart and it puts it in so that you can see when the shift occurred, okay? And this one's sitting at 36.4 degrees. It separates that pre-ovulatory and post-ovulatory temp. So as soon as there's a shift, you pop that in and you can see, okay, that's 12 days. And this is, well, what was that? That was like 20 days in the other side of the phase. So you can also put in that follicular phase, that luteal phase, and you can see when ovulation occurs. So again, it's only determined in hindsight because you can only know once you get that temp spike or once you get that changes in cervical mucus, that ovulation has occurred. So this is, we don't always see it on day 14. Often people say, oh, you're ovulating day 14. That is not always the case. Generally, I actually do see it later in most women I work with because most of you have a shorter luteal phase, okay? So just remember that there is no normal. There's just what's normal for you. And you'll start to see the more you track your cycles, you'll start to understand. The other cool thing, which is actually not shown on here, but underneath, when you're tracking it, I put things like full moon, psoriasis, maybe my supplements, constipation, bloating, loose stools. There's all these symptoms you can track. And then across your cycle, I can go, oh, I'm getting constipated at ovulation. Or for me, my psoriasis tends to flare up around ovulation. I find that just seems to be a bit of a trigger for me. A little bit extra sebum and body warmth as well seems to trigger it a little bit. If there's stress, if I'm not sleeping well, all those things I will track and they will chart underneath. So just some things to know, abnormal temperatures do occur. This is why I love the temp drop because it gets rid of all that stuff. You don't need to worry about it as much, but interrupted sleep, oversleeping, different hours, taking your temp at different times, shift work, alcohol. I know alcohol is a big one. I used to see that when I was tracking my temp. Being unwell, obviously that's going to change your temp as well, travel and medication. So you may find your temp drops a day or two before your period, and that can also help show you when your period's occurring. So we can see here, see how it's 10 and then it drops down. That's right before her period starts. So any questions on that, guys, please reach out, send me a DM, post in the Facebook group. I just think it's really, really important for you to start to get your head around ovulation, your follicular phase, your luteal phase, and then all the other symptoms that occur around it. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Yeah, please start tracking. If you have questions on other apps, please let me know. Yeah, love to hear from you.